The year is 1835. The valley is still dark when John Harrison climbs the hill above Finstwaite, his boots soaked through with Lake District mud below him. Esthwaite water catches the first cold light of morning. He can hear it. The beck, steady and insistent, cutting down through the limestone like it has every morning for 10,000 years. He stands there, listening not to birdsong, not to wind. He's listening to power, and he's about to harness it within 12 months. Stott Park Bobbin Mill stands exactly where he stood stone walls, a timber roof. The smell of sawdust so thick you could almost chew it. The water wheel, 14 feet of iron and oak, turns with a sound like slow thunder, and from that wheel, through a system of shafts and belts and pulleys that look almost alive, a building full of machines begins to spin bobbins, thousands of them, hundreds of thousands. The small, unassuming wooden cylinders that the textile mills of Lancashire and Yorkshire cannot function without. Every loom needs them, every spindle. In 1835, the British textile industry is the engine of the world, and Stott Park feeds that engine. One bobbin at a time. Most people have never heard of this place. Most people drive past the southern tip of Windermere on their way to somewhere more famous and never once wonder what that low stone building among the trees might be. That's understandable. Stott Park doesn't announce itself. It never did. It was built to work, not to be admired. It was built to last. Not to impress, and last it did, for 136 years without stopping to. Understand what makes Stott Park extraordinary. You have to understand what it lived through in 1835, the year it opens. Railways barely exist. Steam is a novelty. Electricity is a laboratory curiosity. The world runs on water and muscle and wind. And the Lake District, with its fells channeling rain into streams that never quite dry up, is one of the finest places in England to build a mill. John Harrison knows this. His water wheel doesn't just power the machines, it is the mill. In the deepest sense, without the beck, there is nothing. Without the wheel, the building is just a stone box in the woods. The workers who come here every morning know that too. They feel it. The wheel starts, and the whole building shudders, not dramatically, not violently, but with a kind of deep, satisfying vibration. Like the mill itself is waking up and stretching leather belts, some of them 4 inches wide, run from line shafts along the ceiling down to the individual machines below. This is how power moves in. 1835. Not through wires, not through pipes, mechanically, physically, you can see it moving. Hear it, feel it through the soles of your boots. The craftsmen who work the lathes and pole lathes are called turners. They're skilled men, and they know it. A good turner can take a rough-cut length of birch or alder, feed it into a lathe, spinning at just the right speed, and produce a finished bobbin in under a minute, smooth, balanced, exactly the right diameter. The wood comes from the surrounding woodland, coppiced in rotation, so the supply is theoretically endless. Hazel, birch, alder, ash, each species with its own qualities, each suited to different kinds of bobbins for different kinds of thread. The smell of fresh-cut wood and machine oil hangs in the air like something permanent. Men shout to each other. Over the noise, wood shavings curl from the lathes in long pale ribbons and pile up on the floor until someone sweeps them away, only for the pile to rebuild itself within the hour outside. Carts arrive with timber inside. Bobbins leave by the basket load, packed into sacks, loaded onto wagons, sent south to feed the looms. This is Stott Park in its first chapter, water-powered, timber-framed, rooted in a landscape that provides everything it needs. But landscapes change, industries change, and what keeps Stott Park alive across 13 decades is not stubbornness, it's adaptation. The first great shift comes in the 1880s. Steam by this point. The railway has reached Lakeside. just a few miles south. The Industrial Revolution that Stott Park helped supply has transformed Britain so completely that the country of 1880 is almost unrecognizable from the country of 1835. Steam engines are everywhere. They power factories. Ships, trains, pumps, they represent modernity itself and their great advantage. Over water is obvious. They don't care about rainfall. They don't care about drought or flood or the seasonal rise and fall of a beck in the Lake District. The decision to install a steam engine at Stott Park is not made lightly. The water wheel still works. The beck still runs. But production demands are rising. And a smart mill owner in the 1880s can see which way the wind is blowing. The steam engine arrives. A horizontal, single-cylinder beast of iron and brass, and finds its place alongside the existing machinery, not replacing the water wheel. Supplementing it, this matters. Stott Park doesn't tear down what came before. It adds to it. The line shafts, the belts, the pulleys, they're all still there. The steam engine simply feeds into the same system. When the water wheel runs, you use it. When it doesn't run well enough, when the beck drops in a dry summer or production demands push past what water alone can provide, you fire up the boiler and let steam carry the load. The men who work here in 1895 are the grandsons of men who worked here in 1835. They've grown up with the sound of this building. They know its rhythms. They know when the wheel is running well and when it's laboring. They know the smell of the boiler room, coal smoke, steam, hot metal, as well as they know the smell of fresh wood shavings on the floor above two worlds, coexisting in one building, separated by a generation's worth of technological change outside. Windermere reflects the clouds. The fells are unchanged. The beck still comes down through the limestone, still finds its way to the wheel. Stott Park stands between eras, 1 foot in the age of water, 1 foot in the age of steam, and it doesn't seem to notice the contradiction. It just keeps turning. The second shift, the one that changes everything for good, arrives in the 20th century. Electricity by the 1930s. The national grid is spreading across Britain. Like a slow tide, rural areas are the last to be connected. But connected they eventually are. For a mill that has already adapted once from water to steam, adapting again feels almost natural. But the implications run deeper this time, because electricity doesn't just change how power is delivered. It changes how machines are designed, how work is organized, how a building sounds. Water power fills a mill with a particular kind of noise. Rhythmic, deep, mechanical. Steam adds a hiss and a pulse, but electricity is almost silent. The electric motors that begin, replacing the old line shaft system at Stott Park hum rather than thunder. Each machine can have its own motor now, switched on and off independently. You don't need the whole building to be running just because one lathe needs power. You don't need the whole system engaged just to start the day the line shafts come down, or some of them do. The belts disappear from some of the machines, but the layout of the floor stays largely the same. The wood still comes in rough and goes out as finished bobbins. Turners still know their craft. The smell of sawdust and machine oil is unchanged. Electricity has altered the invisible infrastructure of the place, but not its soul and business. In these middle decades is still good. The textile industry has changed enormously since 1835, but it hasn't disappeared. New synthetic fibers need new types of bobbins. New machinery needs components that Stott Park can still supply. There are fewer mills like this one now. The cheap imports and shifting economics of the mid-20th century have closed dozens of competitors, but Stott Park keeps running it, keeps running through 2 world wars, through the Depression, through rationing and recovery, and the strange, restless optimism of the post-war years. The building that John Harrison built in a Lake District valley in 1835 stands through all of it, absorbing each era's technology without losing the essential continuity of what it is and what it does. But continuity has a limit. The 1960s bring forces that no amount of adaptation can fully absorb. Not technology this time, economics. Plastic bobbins are cheaper to produce than wooden ones. The textile industry is contracting, relocating, restructuring. The orders that once arrived in a steady stream begin to thin. The men who work the lathes can see what's happening. Even if no one says it plainly, you can feel a place winding down before anyone announces. Its Stott Park Bobbin Mill closes in 1971 after 136 years. The machines stop. The last bobbin rolls off the last lathe. The last worker pulls on his coat, steps out through the door, and the building goes quiet for the first time in living memory. It should have been demolished. That was the likely fate. Industrial buildings without purpose tend to disappear quickly, stripped for materials, flattened for development, erased from the landscape as efficiently as possible. The Lake District had seen it happen to other mills. There was no particular reason to expect Stott Park to survive, but it did survive because the people who came to look at it after closure made a discovery that stopped them in their tracks. The machines were still there, not salvaged, not moved, not sold for scrap. The original lathes were still bolted to the floor. The line shafts were still in place. The steam engine still sat in its room. 3 distinct eras of power technology, water, steam, electricity, existed simultaneously in one building, layered on top of each other like geological strata. Each new system installed beside the old, rather than in place of it. It was, in industrial heritage terms, extraordinary, not a museum reconstruction, not a careful recreation. The real thing, exactly as it had been left. Dust and all English heritage, now historic England, recognized what they had. Stott Park became a preserved monument, and more than that, they made it work again. The machines run, guides demonstrate the craft. Visitors can watch a turner produce an actual bobbin on an actual 19th century lathe, the same way it was done in 1840. You can walk through that building today and hear all 3 eras at once if you know how to listen.